Amazing Women Speak podcast, inspiring and motivating every Black woman to own, honor, and execute her amazing individually and collectively as it was established at birth.
Good evening. And thank you for joining us. This is Crystal Gunn, founder of the Amazing Woman Network, financial strategist, and host of Amazing Women Speak.
Good evening, Michelle Harper. Welcome once again to another conversation where we dismantle, unpack, and disrupt the bullshit bar. Once again, we have in company some amazing women who are here to share their amazing stories. So I'm going to make way without hesitation and invite in our first guest. Sharon, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, ladies. My name is Sharon Dye. I'm also known as Coach Sunny D. I'm an educational consultant and coach for teachers. I'm still an educator as well, so always a teacher.
Awesome.
Nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Come on in, Celeste, and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Celeste Blackman. I am a personal development coach, a private preschool owner, which is called Prosperity Living Preschool. I also have a nonprofit organization called Healing and Prosperity, and currently in the process of starting our youth program, which will launch June 25th. We will support children that has lost parents to either death or incarceration, and it's called the Kenya Youth Foundation.
Incredible. Thank you both for joining us.
So, I got it together now. I was off a little bit at the beginning.
That's all right.
So, from striving to thriving, and before we get in this conversation, I want to give a little context and take it back to, take it back in history and show how this whole I got to do what I need to do just to survive even comes about, and how it negatively can impact us every single day. So let's take it all the way back. So before we start, if you're listening, if you heard, I got to do what I got to do to survive, or some variation of that growing up, drop a 1 in the comments. If you say it, drop a 2 in the comments. And if you if you hear someone else say it in conversation, drop a 3 in the comments. So either of you, Sharon, Celeste, did you hear it growing up? Do you say it now? Do you hear other people say it? Whatever that variation is.
Most definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I heard it then a whole lot, and I still hear people say it today.
Sure.
And I had to learn, grow to not say it.
To unlearn, right? Mm-hmm. Sharon.
I agree with Celeste. I heard it my whole entire life. We just got to make it. We got to do what we have to do. And goodness gracious, I still hear it now. Just being an educator, I hear it from a lot of educators. So yeah, I'm really excited to get into this conversation.
Okay, so let's take it back. Let's go back. I don't know if I've talked about this before on this show, but I often talk about it in financial workshops. That statement, I got to do what I got to do in order to survive. And if we go back, we have to have survival strategies. But when those strategies turn into the way that we operate on a daily basis, that's when it becomes dangerous, right? Because we know survival means the amygdala is going to sound the alarm. It's going to shut down your access to your cortex, where rational thought and creativity takes place. So if we go back, all the way back to slavery days, right? The slave master raping the slave, and she nowhere near wanted any of that to happen, but of course she had to acquiesce, a survival strategy, so that she could save her family, keep favor, live, right? After slavery. You can look after slavery, and then you see the women in the brothels again doing what they need to do in order to survive. So selling their bodies at this point to feed their kids, to keep a roof over their head. And if we keep bringing it forward, you had the drug dealer era, right? And you saw women going to jail, getting shot, paralyzed, killed because they were trying to get with this man in order to have this money, doing what they needed to do to survive. So now it's going from generation to generation. Then you had I need a baller, right? The professional athlete, and then the CEOs or the high value men, as they were called, and you had women saying to their daughters, you better stay in that relationship because that man has money, right? Or keeping a roof over your head, again, doing what you need to do to survive. So now we're passing it down again. And then you have Tyler Perry. There was even a movie, right, where the mama wanted the daughter to marry the man, and they were in cahoots, and the man was horrible, but the mama wanted the trust fund money or whatever, and so now the mama is saying, you got to do what I need you to do in order for me to survive, right? So, and then you have people right now today sitting in relationships and staying in relationships because they don't have whatever it is they think they need to be out on their own. So it's doing what I need to do to survive. So that's just one of the ways that's been impacting us and passed down from generation to generation. And it definitely is. And you said it, you had to unlearn it. It's time to unlearn it and go and move forward because it's impacting us every single day of our lives negatively. And I know someone's saying, but we Black in America, you got to be able to survive.
Yeah.
And survival strategies, absolutely. Survival mode is a horrible thing. And then you have the other things like, I'm an independent woman, right? It's because somewhere along the life, something broke your heart, didn't do what they were supposed to do, and they let you down, and you said, I got this. I'm this independent woman. And we all know you can't do it yourself, and trying to do it yourself is a form of self-sabotage. So again, that survival strategy turning into a survival mode, and it's killing us, and it's probably killing Black women at an alarming rate. So I just wanted to frame some of this conversation, and then I'll just kick it back to Michelle, who I know has an interesting question for us.
Absolutely. So when we start talking about surviving to thriving, it's a journey. And we're going to unpack that as we go tonight, right? We want to start at the impetus of all of this, the surviving of this, right? So there were messages we were taught, and then there were messages that we caught along the way, right? About surviving and it being necessary for life and the place that we show up and get stuck in. Again, especially as women, all of the things that Crystal lifted up. So I want you to tell us a little bit about your survival story, right? Those messages, again, that you were taught and those that you caught along the way about surviving. And, right, like this conversation is we got to be vulnerable. We got to be willing to open up because survival, getting through some of the things, getting through some of the traumas we've experienced in our lives is not easy, right? And so we make space for as much as you want to share. But certainly feel free to give us a little piece of that survival story.
Well, I was asked, I was at a women's conference, and the question that was asked to us is, she asked us to sit there, close our eyes, and allow our masculinity to release.
I love that.
Yeah. And so she walked around and, she was like, she was giving us some things to do to just relax and everything. And when I realized, that was the point where I realized I've been extremely masculine. And I went back, masculine in surviving mode. And so when I went back that evening, it just kind of stuck with me. And I was asking myself, why couldn't I release it? And it said, and I was like, because you've been literally surviving.
Yeah.
And so for that moment was when I realized, that's exactly what you're doing. You're surviving and not thriving. And so at that point is when I decided to thrive.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For me, survival mode started very early in life. I would say around the age of 3. And why that's so pertinent is because I am the product of my dad. So my dad and my mom were married. My mom was in survival mode because my grandma had chosen an older man for her to marry so she can be stable. She was already pregnant before she met my dad with her college professor. I mean, it's this whole thing, right? And me coming along, my mom did everything that she can do to not have any more kids. And my dad, I guess, feeling like he was her husband, he raped her, and I'm the product of that. So the reason why that sort of led me to living life in survival mode is because it was a lot of animosity that my mom felt towards me because at the age of 3, my dad passed. So my life started off in just trying to figure out how to live in this space with a person who didn't necessarily receive me fully, and how to live in this space with shame and rejection and all those things. So for me, learning how to thrive was just something that I had to do. It just coming out of survival mode, it really started me off for just how my relationships were and how I would suffer so much anxiety when I would be in these spaces where I would be received, but I would always sort of revert back to that rejection mode and, just trying to get through this moment or get through this day. And Crystal and I joke because she... I don't know how we're going to laugh in the middle of a conversation that deep, but that's the good thing about healing. But Crystal and I joke because I would just cry. I would always become overcome with emotion. And I noticed after years and years of that being part of my story, I had to deal with it. I was literally always living life like holding my breath, like, I just want to make it through this moment, and I had to learn how to deal with that, which is why learning how to thrive was so important. And the first thing I did was learn how to tell my story from a place of strength. Mm-hmm. No tears, right? So it comes from a place of healing and strength. So, yeah.
So Sharon and I used to work together a gazillion years ago at this point, and literally, I don't even know if there was a day that went by that we weren't laughing and crying. I don't even know how we got anything done. Mm-hmm. So when we were coming in and we're in the parking lot, and I was like, "You got tissue?" Because it's just what we've always done. Yeah. You also did an anthology book, though, and your chapter was
From Surviving to Thriving.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
Right. At what point do we recognize that that's a part of our journey that we should be striving for, right? To recognize, I really love the way that Crystal made that distinction of survival as a strategy versus a mode, right? And as Black women, we push trauma down and we have to be strong and we have to keep moving. And so survival just becomes a way of life. How do I just keep putting one foot in front of another, right? And recognizing or not recognizing that that's killing us and that we have to be intentional and start creating strategies to move us to thriving, right? Just in order to live a full life, right? Every time we stay in survival-only mode, we aren't fully living who we are, right? We're just trying to figure out. And so paying attention and naming the traumas that we've been through, having the courage to have the conversations, and having the courage to have the conversations about healing, so necessary, right? Like how timely in the month that we acknowledge mental health, that in order to get out of survival, we have to start thinking about really thriving and giving ourselves full permission to thrive, right? And recognizing that when we start to thrive, the greatness that comes out changes the narrative for all of us and changes the narrative for those that are around us. So, yeah, I hear you, right? And I receive that. So let's talk about thriving and what that looks like, because some of us are still pretending,
Yeah.
right? Some of us are still pretending because we haven't acknowledged, we haven't told the story at all, let alone from a place of strength, right? Like we're not telling the
Right.
story,
Right.
still pushing it down, guilty in many ways myself, right?
You at yesterday's conference, and please feel free to touch on this a little bit, but you gave a statistic, and for some reason 71% rings in my head, and I don't know if this is the right one. The piece about every day,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. So, right, like it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so there's a lot of statistics out there about the number of people that are dealing with diagnosable mental health conditions, right? And then you think, well, I'm not suffering from schizophrenia. I'm not suffering from extreme depression, right? So that's not me. And what I lifted up is that 71% of people in America struggle with making everyday decisions that will move them forward. So, right, so you may not be that 1 in 5, but I guarantee you, right, like many of us sit in that 71% where we get overwhelmed. And that causes anxiety,
Yeah.
right? It's not diagnosable, but it will paralyze you from being able to do the things that you need to do. 71% are still figuring out how to get out of survival mode and move into thriving.
And you see it showing up in the actions that happen, because now if I'm in this survival mode, it's that fight or flight mode, and so rational thought isn't really there. So someone's made you angry, the boyfriend made you angry, now you shot him, killed him, did whatever, or now you've jumped up and jumped on somebody, and you wind up going to jail and having these other consequences that happen, again, because you're living in survival mode.
I saw someone on Facebook ask, actually he was kind of joking about it, and he said it amazes him how today we have mindset coaches. And so someone said, well, what's the problem with that?
Right.
He said, because I don't understand what the hard part about someone changing their mindset. And so I read it and I was like, wow, because just, like myself, I come from, I was molested by a woman. I was molested by a man. I was at age, like the first time was at 5. And so throughout my life, I was surviving, but I was fighting, like literally with my hands, And so when I read that, it for me, it was like I had to change my mindset and know that it was another way. And so with thriving in itself, it's a choice. It really is a choice. And a lot of people, it was just amazing how you just really said 71%. Mindset is just like, this is my life. This is what it is. I must survive, and that's what I have to do, when it is another choice you can make.
Yeah, you have to be intentional about it. So Facebook, we invite you to join in. If there are strategies that you're willing to share, drop those in the chat. What are your strategies for moving from surviving to thriving? It doesn't happen overnight. And I guarantee you the gentleman who said, I don't understand, just change your mindset. I guarantee you he hasn't done much self-reflection.
Right. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Right? Like, let's be clear. As a black man in this country, I am clear he's got some things he's just trying to survive through.
Yeah,
Come on.
every day. Yeah. And also, you don't know what you don't know. So if I'm in the survival mode all of the time, this is what I know. If this is how you were raised, or if life has done whatever, and now you're there, how do you get out? How do you even know that you need to change your mindset in the first place?
Right? Because it's been so socialized in us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Messages we were taught, that it shows up and we don't even recognize that it shows up, right? There's so much trauma that has happened in this country that we're holding it, right? And we have reactions we don't even pay attention that we're having a reaction to. I was up north this week speaking at a couple of conferences. And mind you, anytime I go up north, there's not many black or brown people there. And I've never had a negative experience. But paying attention to what just happened in Buffalo, right? Like there's anxiety, right? Like I called somebody in the middle of the day to be on the phone with me while I get gas.
Wow.
Right? No threat has ever happened to me as many times as I've been, but instinctively, right? Survival mode kicks in immediately, right? And so how do we let ourselves go that I don't stay in that place, right? Because it has a physical impact. It has a mental impact. How do we move to thriving? What are some of those strategies? How did you get there, right? That we can talk about it without tears.
Yeah, for me, it was just honoring the voice within. It was always there. It was always telling me you're enough, you're safe, you matter. And just getting quiet enough and trusting myself enough and my instincts and my gut to say, you know, you don't have to keep running from people, places, things. You're okay. You can take up space and you'll be okay. So for me, it just started with honoring the small whispers within.
So, okay. So somebody out there saying, okay, that's what you say and that's what you did. Walk me through the process though, because someone's sitting out there and they need it, but they don't even know. They hear different things in their head. They need.
Yeah.
What were the steps? What made you say? Because you said honoring the voice within, and so the voice within you kept saying that you really are this great person. You really are this. But what made you decide? Okay, I need to believe that.
For me, I waited so long. I was just sick and tired of just not believing it. You know what I mean? And other people were constantly confirming it, be it a negative confirmation or a positive confirmation. They were already seeing things in me. So it was like people wouldn't really be putting this much energy into this if there wasn't something I need to pay attention to. So for me, I just got tired of just existing, you know, knowing that I was greater than what I was showing up as. So sometimes you just got to get sick and tired of yourself. Get over yourself.
Own
But
self
that's so
together.
true, because like for me, I was actually to the point where I did not like me.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I did not like me, and I was like, "That's not normal," you know. So something has and the reasons that I didn't like me was because of the things that happened to me. It had nothing to do with me, and so. When I gained the knowledge that, hey, you know, you can make better choices, you can do things totally different, and just because that's how or what you went through, don't mean that what's coming before you can look the same, have to look the same way.
Right.
Like I just told a young lady, we was talking and she said, I just turned 35 years. I was telling her, your first 35 don't have to look like your next 35. You know, and so, you know, like I said, for me, it was just with that inner voice, which is that first voice you hear when you get ready to step out in the streets. You know, you hear that voice say, don't do it, it's a car coming. That voice, you know, I had to learn to listen to that voice, because most likely either that voice right there was what was going to protect me. Like I had to ask I used to always feel like, you know, oh, nobody ever protected me and all that because of all the trauma I had experienced. And when I realized after all that stuff that went on and I was still here, I was like, oh, I had some protection.
Yeah.
I definitely had some protection. It wasn't from the people that I wanted it from.
Right.
But I was definitely protected. So, yeah.
Wow.
Do you have tears?
Right. Yeah. I mean, to pay attention to that, right? And to discover that there's a strength that you have to have for yourself when those that we expect to do a thing disappoint us, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to make that shift, right? Like, I really want us to practice some bravery in this space and really help folks that are listening in get to that thriving point, right? Because it wasn't a light switch. Life changes is that dimmer.
Yes.
And unfortunately, dimmers do this, right? Like they go up and down. And so every tactic that we tried to move to thriving wasn't successful, right? And so how do you get back up and not go back to what we've been taught, which is just stay in survival mode? How do you get back up and recognize, right, like I have to thrive, right? For whatever the reason is, right? Like whatever that thing was, that moment, that defining moment, that no more will I be held captive in a survival mode. What is that like?
Well, for me, it was forgiveness.
Of who first?
Right.
Right? Of who first?
Well, first, I had to forgive myself for blaming myself. And then I had to give grace to the people, the grown people, my parents and, grandparents and aunts and uncles who we look at as our protectors. And these are the people that should make sure I'm okay. And this
Keep
is
you safe.
Keep me safe. And so, but as I started growing, I had to even give those people grace because they were just reacting out of what they knew. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, my father, he couldn't have been no father to me. He watched his father get stabbed to death at 10 years old. So he lived 82 years with a stab wound here and here from where the guy stabbed him. How could he possibly be a father to me?
And that he
Why
gets
am
to
I
see-
mad at him?
Right.
He lived this every day. He died from, with dementia. But that right there, he never, ever forgot. And so forgiving those people, and, back in those days, they were, everybody grew up. Whatever goes on in the house stays in the house. So if their parents taught them that, they were teaching us that. And I decided to just break the mold. That's not the rule. That with my daughter, and so a big part of that for me was forgive. Even the guy that molested me, even the woman that molested me, I found myself, knew I had totally grew because the lady that had molested me was going through some trauma. She had just lost her boyfriend. And before I knew it, I was hugging her.
Oh, my.
And I was like, but I didn't think about it, but that's how I knew I was healed. That's when I knew I was healed. And I was able to embrace her, speak life into her. And afterwards, I didn't even, it just didn't dawn on me that that's what I did until I was driving home. And I rode home crying, like, thank you, because I'm healed. So, yeah. Even forgiving, those people. And some of it is like really forgiving them for what they don't know. Because come to find out, they were molested.
Right.
So that goes back to everybody being on survival mode, thinking that this is what it's supposed to be. And it's okay, even when it's not. But, that part of survival is just something different for some.
Mine came through that whole financial storm and that I had, divorce, mortgage industry crashing, second business just crashing, and then financial, what I say now, ruin, right? But thinking, going back to that independent woman thing, right? And not sharing and not saying to others that I needed the help, and the depression that came along with it, and not even knowing that I was in a state of depression and all of that. And for me, it was like, okay, God, you know what? This is not what my life is supposed to look like. Something. You got to do something. Tell me what it is I'm supposed to be doing. Show me what I'm supposed to be doing. Help me through this. Use me as you see fit. And it was in that moment that it was literally, okay, I need you to do this and I need you to do this. And from that, right, the Amazing Woman Network was born. From that, it was about, okay, learning to get my own finances together so that I then could go back into that fire to help somebody else out. But I remember years later from when that happened, realizing that, okay, yeah, I was supposed to empower and unite Black women globally. Yes, I was supposed to help people reclaim their financial power. But all of it started because I needed to be empowered. And as I was empowering others, I actually was empowering myself. Trying to help somebody else get through that storm. Right.
That's good. That's good.
They both just said,
Right. There's a word for the people.
But I think that's the powerful part of it. It being able to empower someone else, even in the midst of you being empowered, whether they know or not. Just being able to be openly learning and, and literally thriving through helping someone else.
Thriving through helping someone else. Yeah, and that was the biggest piece for me. And it's there was the thing that got me out of that. True story. I wound up talking to a friend of mine who I hadn't spoken with in like over a year. He was telling me what had happened in his life. Now, this is somebody who was an attorney, had a beautiful wife, 2 beautiful kids, right? And he's telling me this story, and all through his story, I keep saying, wow, that sounded like what happened to me. Wow, that sounded like what happened to me. He didn't want to talk to anybody, right? He'd come home from work and just go to bed, right? Wasn't opening the mail, and everything he said, I was like, God, that sounded like what was happening to me. Well, he got to the end of his story, and he said that he went to see a psychiatrist, and they diagnosed him with being depressed. I was like, oh, that was what was wrong with me. Huh? I didn't even know. But they wrote, his doctor wrote him a prescription, and that's where our story differed. I never went to see anybody. I was like, God, I need you to fix this within me. I need you to be able to. So going back to our belief system and what we really believe, and literally saying, this is not, I right now am not the type of woman that I want my daughter to grow up to be. Fix it. And I always say everything that I do now and everything that has happened, it's just been me trying, because I don't get it right every day, but trying to be obedient. I take no credit but the credit of obedience to be here. So that's, and it was someone who told me, you don't know. I was like, I don't know what to do. Ask. And God will let you know exactly what you are supposed to do.
Yeah. That obedience piece is powerful.
Yes, it is.
Powerful. That's right. And so as Black women, we have mastered PhD level survival, right? And something just really resonated with me thinking about this conversation and where I was yesterday. And so in the introduction of the keynote that I did, the person that introduced me said, you don't look like what you've been through. Survival technique, right? What if I had showed up like I had been through something, right? Like, who would I bless earlier in my journey? How would I learn to receive help differently, right? Like, I intentionally didn't show up like I looked like I had been through something because, one, Black women don't get to do that.
We don't.
Right? Like, it's a story that we've been told. We don't get to do that. Push down, push through, right? We don't get to do that. Secondly, that's weakness.
Yeah.
My father didn't raise me to be weak. I'm not coming, right? Like, we're not doing any of that. There was a cost for that, right? So now when there are moments when I just can't, everybody thinks I can because they never saw me look like what I've been through. That cost me. And I appreciated it yesterday when she said it because, yes, I'm strong. But no, damn it, no. It cost me because I promise you right now, the last 3 weeks have been some of the hardest emotionally, physically for me in a really long time. And survival mode, I go right into just, nobody will come to rescue me because I don't look like
They don't know you need to be rescued, right?
Right? So, nope, I'm done taking that one as a compliment.
Yeah, because,
Right?
Exactly.
I just had that experience. I was telling my niece this morning, I was just talking to my niece this morning, I said, I have endured some brutal beatdown in the last 2 months.
What? Oh, yeah.
But I didn't look like it. So what I did was, that's exactly what I did. And I asked her that, I said, nobody ever asks me how I'm doing because they just expect that, oh, she okay, she okay. No, damn it.
I'm not. I'm
Not okay.
I'm not okay. But because I've
Strong Black woman.
strong Black woman.
Right? And we put thrive on pause.
Yeah.
Because we have to go back to survival mode.
Right.
That's not healthy.
At
That's not
all,
healthy. We
right?
have
Like,
to-
that's an epiphany right here in this moment. Right, guys? From last night, like, I took that as a compliment yesterday. And I started thinking about this conversation. Nope, not so much the compliment.
What was it, Leah and Brittany yesterday who said the piece about it's expensive? What was that piece?
Correct, right? Were we talking about the power of no? and learning to say no because yes is expensive.
Yes.
That hits so different.
Yeah, it hits.
That's so hard.
Yeah.
Yes is expensive. And I keep paying a price I can't afford to pay. Giving out yeses, right? Despite me knowing no is a full sentence.
It's a full sentence.
I don't throw commas behind it, right? None of that. I know that.
And we know it, and we still say yes
Correct.
because, that's what we do. We still say yes.
Well, I don't.
I don't anymore either.
I'm quite comfortable with saying no because I had to be a yes girl the majority of my life. So I've created so many boundaries and self-care plans, and it's no.
You are like the self-care. You created something for teachers. Talk about that.
Oh my gosh. So teachers, oh my goodness. So teachers, my heart is for teachers. I've been a teacher my whole entire life, professionally, 21 years now. And it's just what's going on in the profession. Teachers being predominantly women, we know in the profession, and just experiencing so much push through and so much trying to be super women. That strong woman, that whole thing that is just like, no, it's enough of this. Just wearing the weight of so much, the weight of the schools, the weight of the communities, the children, the families. And I started Self-Care Saturdays for teachers. And it's just basically a safe space for us to just be. No forced fun.
Right?
Because as educators, any teachers know what I mean by that. We have these forced fun sessions, and they're not fun, and they're not relaxing.
Right.
And so we come together every other Saturday, and we relax. We have conversations. We talk about things, whatever we want to talk about. If we want to talk about what's going on at work, we have conversations about that, and we relax down at the Detroit Riverfront, and we take it easy, we dance, we listen to music, and it's just a space to just come and just be, and not feel like you have to be perfect. And if you want to cuss, damn it, cuss.
Right.
Because I'm a cusser. So, Self-Care Saturdays, yeah. Our next
That's
one is
good.
May 28th down at the Detroit Riverfront at Robert Valdy Park from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Do you have to be a teacher in
You
the
do
Detroit
not
public school system
have
to join?
be a teacher. Because it is my belief that we're all educators. We're
For
all
sure.
teachers.
Yeah.
Just wear a title, but we all impact children. We all impact one another. So it is for anyone who appreciates teachers, and to me, excuse me, that's everyone. So you all are welcome to come out.
Love it. I know a big lesson that I learned from my daughter. Couple years, no, maybe last year. And so, everybody knows. Call Crystal, she probably knows somebody to connect me to. I'm the plug, right? I know who to put you in contact with forever, right? And so someone called me to ask about if the person who does my locks, if they did braids, and I said no. And that really should have just been the end of the that just should have been the end of the conversation. And I said, well, let me ask Niall, right? And now I'm off the phone with that person. And I asked Niall, and Niall said no. And then I said, well, what about, because, she always will get her hair braided. And I said, well, what about it went through 3 people? And she was just like, no, I don't know anybody. And turned and walked away. And I said, you know what? There's such a beauty in that.
Yes.
I need to learn that. Because they called to ask about the person that did my hair. Should I do braids? Sorry, that should have been it. And why do we take it upon ourselves to then try to figure something out
So draining.
for someone else? I was like, okay, yeah. So that's been like the thing that I try to work on. And people will text me, and then I'll be like, backspace. Like, don't do that. No is the answer. I don't know.
Real life, right? Real life.
And every day, though, it's something I have to do and catch myself with all of the time. Now, if I know, I'm going to say yes, but if I don't know,
just
I'm
don't
not going to try. I can't try to figure it out for you. I'm still over here trying to figure stuff out for me.
Right.
I need you to figure out something. So I think we get to going back to you saying no. You don't have to be an educator though, because everyone's teaching somebody something. You just have to pay attention to the lessons and the signs. And my daughter, listen, I tell her all the time, you teach me probably more than I teach you. So she's like, no, I don't. Stop asking me.
So let's talk about thriving and what that looks like, right? What was the moment when you recognize, right? Like the switch is there. Is it I'm paying attention to myself more? Is it the self-care? What does thriving look like in your life?
For me, I think I heard something. I think I heard something from someone that just ignited something in me that made me say, well, if she can do that with her story, I don't have any more excuses. And I just went on this personal development journey, just developing myself emotionally, spiritually. I started off physically, and then I fall off, and then I start again, I fall off. I'm still on that journey. But just started working on myself one thing at a time, one day at a time, just by seeing someone else, regular old person, doing what I knew I could do. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, a close friend of mine had asked me, "Who are you?"
Oh.
That's what I said. And I was like, huh? Because nobody have ever asked me that before. And me at that time not being able to answer that question and watching her, like you said, just watching her do it. And I mean, she had a whole story.
Yeah.
And it was just like, dang. And so what I did that's what I started doing. I started doing work to try to figure out who I was. And so I had did a whole backstory on my family. I wanted to know from her, watching her, I wanted to know who my mother was, who my father was, where they came from. Why did my mother decide to drink alcohol when she was pregnant with me? I wanted to know who my grandparents were, because it was important for me to learn their backstory in order to learn who I was. And so for me, that was like a whole part in itself. And so when I started doing those things and doing my own private investigations and stuff, I started learning like, wow. And it ended up making perfect sense, because it got me to realize who my mother was, how she was showing up. She had a whole story.
Right.
And so there, and from that point on, I just started doing self-care and saying no, choosing me first, which is why that whole thing was going on, because I was just simply saying no more. That's not who I am, no more. And so that caused a whole bunch of stuff, because people don't like the no.
Right.
People don't like no.
Right.
And they like when you change.
Yeah, they don't like that. But that's what started. And all I was doing is recreating me, and going after the things that I deserve and the things that I wanted to do. And I find myself around like-minded people now, but I had to be open and willing to do my own personal work in order to figure it all out.
So we have somebody on Facebook who's saying, right, like survival mode is autopilot. I just do, and I don't know how to ask for help. Right? Or even when we ask for help, somebody offers us, the first thing we say, no, I got it.
I got
right?
it.
Like, no, I got it. How do we learn to ask for help? I can't answer this question because I'm still trying to figure that one out myself. But how do we learn to ask for help? And give ourselves the grace that says that this isn't a sign of weakness, right? Asking for help is actually a sign of strength.
Mm-hmm.
How do we learn to ask for help when we haven't been able to do that before?
Well, for them to even ask that, in my opinion, for them to even ask that question, they just did it.
All right, so we're acknowledging, right?
Just acknowledging it.
Okay.
Just acknowledging it. But be mindful of who you're asking from help from as well. And the reason I say that is because
Everybody
can't
ain't.
help you.
Right.
You know, just because it's your sister don't mean that's your help. You know, so just if you can, just be mindful and pay attention to the, you know, other people outside your circle, because those might be the ones that can really, really help you, not the ones in your circle.
So how do we get vulnerable enough to expose who we are, that people will come to you and offer you the thing, right? When we're trying to figure out how to ask for it, right? Like sometimes I'm like, my circle ought to know. They ought to be able to see past my bullshit and recognize I'm in a space of needing help, right? Like,
But you showed up. Thank God you don't look like what you've been through, right? So yeah, we think that someone is supposed to say, "Hey, do you need some help?" But forever you've said, "Oh no, I got it." You come in and you look the part and you act the part and you got the smile on your face, and inside you,
And then I'm always the helper.
right?
Yeah.
You know, and so why do you need help? That's how people, you know, people look like, oh, she's the go-to, but she don't need nobody.
That's the go-to. Need a go-to.
and I promise you, this individual on Facebook asking this is the go-to.
Is the go-to.
She's the go do. Yeah.
Yeah, most likely she is the go-to, because that's definitely me. And so when I think back at it, I'm like, well, this is how you always showing up. You don't show up like you need nobody. You know, even though you don't, you know, I don't, and that's the honest truth. I don't, you know, and so I am still learning that piece, but now I'm mindful. You know, even, you know, when I was going through, I just put it in our group. Hey, pray for me. You know, and they didn't know no details, or some of them may have known, some of them didn't. But I was just like, all right, you know. But that's just, you know, I trust them. I know that they're going to do exactly what I asked them to do.
But isn't that
Now, I might
part of
not
that
call the
strong
girl
black
across the
woman?
street. Yeah.
Isn't that part of that though? Which is why we say let's just kill the strong black woman already. Is because that's it. We're not gonna ask for help, knowing that trying to do it by yourself, it is a form of self-sabotage. We have to stop doing it.
really
But
is.
and some people will say, yeah, I need help, but if I got to tell somebody how to do it, right, I might as well just do it myself. Bullshit.
Correct.
Yep.
Call it again, right? Right. Call it.
That's exactly what it is.
Call it.
And that was definitely me.
And you think, well, if I got to take the time to, but once you take the time and train somebody how to do it, now your time from that point on is free. But it's hard to ask. I did I had a workshop at one point, and again, this was in that financial realm, talking about that financial realm and telling my story and how we are secretive and don't say things for whatever reason. And you could go down a list of why somebody won't share their information. And one of my oldest friends was in the room, and I said to everybody, I said, I can guarantee you, everybody in this room is going through something and no one knows that they're going through it. And I said, let me show you. And I turned to Judy and I said, Judy, had you ever heard this story before? And she said, no, I'd never heard this story. I went to high school with her.
Wow.
And she was like, because had I known, I would have helped. And sometimes it's just, I'm talking to me right now, y'all, still.
Right.
Sometimes getting the help just means we need to ask for the help. Because somebody will, you know, even if it's me not taking the wrappers off the peppermint, right? I'm coming to help. If that's a, yeah. But we have to ask, I think. What is it? You have not because you ask not?
Yeah.
Last night, my brother was over and he came in, and I was just able to look at him. I said, "What's wrong with you? What happened?" He's like, "Stop doing that," you know. But I think as you grow and you continue to learn, and you get, you know, you get to know the people that you know. It becomes a gift to just know without even them saying anything to you. You could just kind of look at them like, you know, something ain't right.
Yeah. And, you know, I was thinking about this whole help thing because for me, that's still an area I struggle in too. It's getting easier, but I had to be intentional about opening myself up more to people who are higher up than me or further ahead than me.
Along on their journey, because I
Along
want
on
to
their
say that,
journey.
and then not necessarily their title.
Position.
Right.
But yeah.
On their journey, absolutely, Crystal. And I think that's very important because you cannot be the smartest person in your circle, the person with all the information, the go-to. because people won't know how to support you when you need help. They look at you. I'm experiencing it now. Like, they literally look at you like they don't know what to do because
what to
they're
say.
not or what to say, because they don't always have the capacity to support you. And I think that's why it's good to have friends and people and mentors and coaches and people around you who are further on their journey, because they've already walked in that space. So you don't even have to always say, I need help. You just have to open up your mouth and be vulnerable. And then they're like, I see what's going on with you. But I think that for the people out there who may be listening who haven't reached that part in their life where they've opened up their circle to more diversity and different types of people, I think that's going to be necessary, because if somebody's drowning, they can't save you from drowning. They can't help you. They just, we drown together, and
True story.
we can't go along like that any longer. So yeah.
Right. So, Kim, I want to offer this up, right? Like, this is coming from me to you and back to me, because I need to see your space as well. Much to your point, right? Like, pay attention to your circle, and then simply with a little bit of bravery, just ask. And because you paid attention to your circle, trust that the person that you've asked will figure it out to offer you the help that they need. And that even if they get it wrong, their attempt to help you was out of love.
Yeah.
And you're going to ask again. And I guarantee you that person's going to keep trying to figure it out so they can be the answer you need. I send that to you and send it back to me, because we all need to learn how to do better in that space, asking for help so that we can move to thriving. Every last one of us deserves to be stuck in thriving mode.
Yes.
We've got to find the strategies to get us out of just thinking surviving is all we deserve. We deserve to thrive. And I'm going to share something that I shared yesterday. My faith is the base and foundation of who I am. And a friend of mine asked me years ago how I was doing. I said, I serve an amazing God. I'm hanging on. And he said, you don't serve a hanging on kind of God. Right? I don't have to survive. I know God. Thriving is my birthright.
Yeah.
I just got to act like it, right? So I invite us to be thinking about what's our thriving strategies.
Yes.
How do we put ourselves deservingly in thriving mode,
Amazing women thrive.
right?
Right? Amazing women thrive. And like you said, it's our birthright. And I think part of it is the unlearning and learning new techniques, but remembering at the end of the day just how incredible you are. And people talk about, God this and God that. And it's like, if you truly believe in that higher power, if you truly believe that thing where they say you were made in the image, you were made in the image. Yeah, because we need to hear whatever that was.
Listen, and this is a real life conversation, right? Again, because of the way we've been socialized. Someone on Facebook says, why does the strong black woman even exist? I never heard of a strong white woman, a strong Asian woman, a strong Latino, or a strong Mexican woman, right?
Because if they can teach us and if they can put that moniker on us and then we accept it, it continues to break down the black household.
Yes.
And it keeps us separate. Because if I'm strong, I feel like I don't have to ask you. If I'm strong, I feel like I don't have
Thank you for
to. I
that.
don't need your assistance and your help. So I'm gonna stay over here isolated and by myself. And we'll never come together to rise up and be as great and amazing as we truly are, as it was established at birth.
At birth.
Come on.
Right? Right, so as we begin to wrap this up, tell us in parting, what is that thing for you? What's the thrive in you that you hold on to, that you ground your feet in and get up and keep doing each day? What's that thing?
Ooh, for me, it's just constantly showing up the best version of myself, the highest version of myself. Keeping my mind focused upward, my thoughts, my words, my actions, everything just not so much just always saying, just being positive, but constantly staying on an upwardly mobile journey. That's in my emotional, my spiritual, my physical, my financial. That was for you,
Thank you.
Crystal.
I appreciate that.
Just, keeping my circle around like-minded women and men and individuals that are focused on thriving themselves and just being intentional about it every day. I mean, 2 hours ago, I was like laying on the couch like, okay, I gotta go. But then I said, you know what? Your mind just starts racing. Well, I can just send her a text. I don't really feel And I said, well, that's not who you are. You don't show up like that anymore.
Right.
So that's part of thriving. Like, get up and pull yourself together. You're okay. You got this. And I'm here, and I'm thriving with you, ladies. So that's what it looks like for me.
Awesome. Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
And for me, simply owning who I am, owning the work that I've done on me, keeping in alignment of everything that I have done for me personally, mentally, spiritually, financially, emotionally, and just keeping those things in line, aligned, and staying focused on the things that I desire for myself. Because the most of my life has been about everybody else. Well, I'm gonna say my last 45 was about everybody else.
Come on.
My next 45 won't be. It's the work that I do, but now it's about me, and so that's what I look forward to.
So, ladies, those out there on Facebook, remember, our minds are wired for negative thoughts.
Yes.
Our minds are wired to protect us from the things of the world. So negative thoughts coming up is the natural reaction. So you have to decide intentionally every single day. So say to yourself, every single day, when someone asks you how I'm doing, don't say surviving, say thriving. Mm-hmm. That's a positive word to get you moving in a positive direction. Mm-hmm. One small word can begin to change the way you think, the way you show up, the way that you act, and then be able to impact the things that you can obtain in life. How are you doing today? I'm thriving. I'm thriving.
Yeah.
My name is Michelle Harper. I am an amazing woman, and I own every single bit of my amazing. Crystal, come on in here.
Oh, okay.
Outro up. Set the stage.
Right. So it's that's so fantastic of what you just said, though, and I just want to add one of the things that I had to do in replacing that negative thought. It was like not only replace it with a good thought, but I had to replace it with like 10 good thoughts behind it.
Right.
So it was
Absolutely.
I'm thriving, I'm amazing, you know what I mean, to just overcome and then at some point. And for me, it's always continuing to release the things that no longer serve us, whatever and whoever it is. I think, are we running? Are we done? So I thank you, everybody, for listening today. I hope that this was everything that you thought it would be, and I hope that you got something out of it. I am Crystal Gunn. I am a Black woman, and I own my amazing.
That's the mantra. We need you ladies to get that in here before we get out of here.
All right. Well, my name is Sharon Dye, and I am also a Black woman, and I own my amazing as well.
Yes.
I am Celeste Blackman. I am a Black woman. I own my amazing, and I do thrive.
That's right.
Yes.
See you next week when we'll be talking about
What is next week? The 29th.
Lupus.
Lupus awareness.
Yes. That'll be a great conversation. Thank you all for joining in. Enjoy the rest of your cool and chilly day.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.